Husband cheated on me with Stri and threw a Bday party for me where he announced she was pregnant with his child. His sister helped me expose everything to his family. My husband, Cole, and I have been married for 8 years now. It all started when I was a 28-year-old personal assistant grappling with the loss of my father. Losing a parent leaves you feeling incredibly isolated and empty, as anyone who's been through it knows. I was in a really tough spot emotionally. Then along came Cole, this charming older man who seemed to know exactly what to say to lift my spirits. We did have a cliché love story in the beginning, and maybe that is why I fell head over heels for him. At that time, he was everything I was looking for. Safe, reliable, and affectionate. We used to go on these amazing dates, and he always treated me like a true gentleman. My mom absolutely loved him from the start. When I met his parents, there was some initial tension because we come from different ethnic backgrounds, but over time, they've really warmed up to me. His sister, Kylie, and I hit it off right away and have become incredibly close. We talk regularly and often go shopping or grab lunch together. Kylie feels like the sister I have always wished for but never had. She and I share everything with each other, and sometimes I feel incredibly grateful that because of my husband, I have her in my life. Cole and I were still deeply immersed in our lovey-dovey phase when he spontaneously decided to propose to me. He had completely caught me off guard with a surprise engagement party, inviting all our loved ones. Without much hesitation, I said yes. I can still vividly recall the smiles on the faces of our families as they kept raving about how Cole and I were made for each other. I admit, for a long time, I wholeheartedly believed it too. Our wedding went well without any incidents, and for our honeymoon, we spent 2 weeks in Mexico. It was only when we returned home that reality hit us hard. Moving into his place became quite a challenge because he was very particular about his belongings and didn't want me to alter anything in his living room or bedroom by adding my own touch. I tried to compromise by suggesting that I could slowly incorporate my style around the house so he could adjust to it. However, then he had an issue with the size of my wardrobe, claiming that nobody in their right mind needs so many clothes. While I'm certainly no fashion influencer, like any other woman, I did have a collection of clothes that I didn't want to part with. He insisted that I needed to downsize my wardrobe as much as possible since he didn't want me to take over half of his wardrobe space. Understanding his concerns, I agreed that I didn't want him to feel cramped in his own space. Instead of keeping my clothes in our bedroom, I decided to take over the guest room for my wardrobe. Next, he had an issue with my fridge magnets. Growing up, I always dreamt of exploring new places. So, when I finally got a job, I made it a point to save up and travel as much as possible. One of my little traditions was collecting fridge magnets from each new destination I visited and proudly displaying them on my fridge as mementos of my adventures. However, Cole always found them to be tacky and cheap looking. He vehemently refused to allow any of my magnets on our fridge. We had some heated arguments about it, but he eventually urged us not to start our marriage on rocky ground, so I reluctantly agreed to let it go. During the first 2 years of my marriage, I spent a lot of time hanging out with my family and friends. Cole, on the other hand, was more of a homebody, especially since he worked long hours and often felt drained. I enjoyed being social and going out with my friends, so I didn't mind going out alone sometimes. Cole would suggest that I stay home, but we still made time for date nights twice a week, which I cherished. Most evenings, I preferred spending time with him, but occasionally, I liked meeting up with other people too. Similarly, he had his own interests, like hanging out with his golf buddies on Sundays, and I never had an issue with that. However, in the 3rd year of our marriage, I noticed a shift in Cole's behavior. When we got married, we were pretty clear that we didn't want children, but out of nowhere, Cole suddenly started telling me that he wanted to be a father and how he would love to have a baby with me. This took me by surprise, and I brought back how it was both our decision to never be parents, but Cole brushed it off, saying that he wanted to see me with a pregnant belly. His words made me feel extremely uncomfortable. On multiple occasions, he would insist on not using a condom, which made me even more fearful that he was trying to forcefully make me pregnant. I had several conversations with him trying to understand why he wanted to be a father so suddenly, when until last year he had been saying he loved the fact that we had no extra responsibilities of having children. Cole continued to insist that once I was pregnant and I could give up my job, everything would become perfect in our marriage. The thought of losing my job terrified me. I know a lot of you might not agree with this, but I decided to start taking birth control pills after making an appointment with my gynecologist. Thankfully, it worked and I never got pregnant. Meanwhile, Cole's behavior continued to get erratic. He even started questioning me about who I was hanging out with and where we were going whenever I wanted to spend time with my friends. He would comment on the type of outfits I wore, which was surprising to me because I've always been modest in my clothing choices. He would suggest that I should cover up more even if I was wearing a normal shirt with a jacket, saying how he was concerned about what other guys might think when they saw me. At first, I brushed it off, but then he started getting more aggressive, insisting every time that I change into a different outfit before going out. It made me feel uncomfortable and unsure about what was happening in our relationship. A few weeks after this, I started noticing that some of my favorite clothes were missing from my wardrobe. Initially, I thought I was going crazy and turned the house upside down searching for them. When I asked Cole about it, he claimed to have no idea. However, while rummaging through the garage, I stumbled upon my clothes stuffed into an empty shoebox. I was furious and confronted him about it. At first, he denied knowing anything about it, but I pointed out that it was just the two of us in the house, so he couldn't avoid responsibility this time. After some argument, he finally admitted that he had hidden my clothes to prevent me from wearing them when I went out with my friends. I was appalled and furious. He continued to justify, saying how he was just trying to save my face, as girls who dressed up like that were often labeled as characterless or easy by guys. I lost my temper and yelled at him that he had gone insane and that he had no right to determine what I could or could not wear. I pointed out to him that I was married to him for the past 3 years and had never been disloyal, so why would he care so much about what other men thought? I made it clear that no reasonable person would behave in such a controlling manner toward their partner. In the end, he apologized, and because this was the first weird thing he had ever done to me, I thought maybe he was just going through a phase or something, so I let it go. However, it kept getting worse. I began to notice that messages from my friends and family were mysteriously disappearing from my phone. For instance, if I had a conversation with my mother and made plans to meet up, I'd find no trace of our chats a couple of days later. It left me completely baffled. At first, I thought it might be a bug on my phone, so I updated it to fix any potential issues. Then, one of my friends called me to inform me about a small party she was planning at her place with her close friends and asked if I was available. She mentioned that she would send me the party invitations soon. However, I never received them on my phone. When she called later to ask why I hadn't replied, I explained that I never received any message from her after our conversation. It wasn't until I attended her party that weekend that she showed me how she had indeed sent me the invitation, which I never received. It was all very strange and unsettling. I began to suspect my phone was hacked, so I decided to buy a new phone for myself. I am an emotional hoarder, so I didn't want to sell my old phone just in case I could fix it in the future. Throughout this time, I had been sharing these strange occurrences with my husband Cole, and he seemed just as puzzled as I was. However, the day I bought my new phone, I didn't think to mention it to him. That night, I woke up feeling really thirsty and got up to get some water. As I entered the living room, I was startled to see my husband crouched on the sofa, holding both phones in his hands. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust, but once they did, I could see that he was going through my phone. I couldn't contain my shock and frustration, and I asked him loudly what the hell he was doing. He jumped, clearly caught off guard by my sudden appearance. He started babbling about how clearly I was cheating since I had bought another phone without asking him. He went off on a rant about how he should have never trusted me, while I stood there in shock trying to comprehend what was happening in the middle of the night. I calmly explained to him that he already knew the issues I was facing with my old phone, and I had just bought the new phone, which I had not even set it up yet, so he could have just waited for me to mention it to him the next day. I asked him again what he was doing with both my phones in his hand in the middle of the night, and he sheepishly tried to tell me that he was just checking to see if there were any issues on my phone. I snatched my phone from his hands and noticed that he had opened my chats on the old phone. A realization struck me like a lightning bolt. I realized that it was Cole who had been deleting my messages, which is why I was not receiving invitations from my friends or families. Meanwhile, he kept insisting that he couldn't sleep and had come out to watch some TV when he stumbled upon my new phone near my bedside table and curiously began going through it. He claimed he was also checking my old phone to see if he could find any bugs that I might have missed. I looked at him blankly and asked him directly if he had been deleting my messages from the phone. Hearing this, Cole became agitated and vehemently denied it, telling me that it was absurd to even ask him such a thing. He insisted that he would never do something like that. However, despite his denial, I couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that something wasn't right. I pointed out to him that he was clearly going through my messages in the middle of the night, so he had no stance to deny it. I could not comprehend why on earth he would do something like that to me. I told him that because he was deleting my messages, I was unable to meet up with my friends or my family. It felt like a betrayal on multiple levels, and I couldn't comprehend why he would sabotage my relationships with my loved ones in such a sneaky manner. I couldn't even bring myself to look him in the eyes anymore. I felt utterly disgusted and decided to trust my gut instincts. I told him that he had crossed a line this time, and I needed some space. I began packing my bags, intending to go live with my mother for a while. He pleaded with me not to leave, finally admitting that he had been deleting my messages just so he could spend more time with me. I couldn't comprehend how he could justify such a violation of privacy, especially when I already spent plenty of time with him. Later, when I confided in my mother, she agreed that what he had done was indeed strange. However, she also mentioned that I was fortunate to have a husband who still loved me so deeply after all these years, even if his actions were misguided. Despite her words, I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal and unease. My husband kept calling me like a madman and texting me continuously. His messages ranged from apologizing to blaming me for making him think that I was cheating on him. The next few days I kept my phone switched off and tried to distract myself by helping my mom around her house. I don't know why, but on one hand I knew something was wrong with Cole, but on the other hand, I didn't know what to do about it. It was like I was too dense to even admit the truth to myself. Luckily, Kylie showed up to comfort me. She was just as disturbed as I was to know about what her brother had been doing to me. Now I know a lot of you might think that she would obviously support her brother because they are related by blood, but Kylie is totally a girl's girl. She assured me that what I was feeling was completely normal because no husband should wake up in the middle of the night to check on their wife's phone and react the way Cole did when I have never done anything for him to be this suspicious. She agreed that something was up and promised to investigate by talking to him. I did feel much better after talking to her and hoped that she could make Cole see some sense. I did switch on my phone after talking to Kylie as I felt a lot better. However, I was bombarded with angry text messages from Cole. He sounded like a different person, and in some of his messages he had even threatened divorcing me and leaving me with nothing, just like my dad had left me. This was totally out of character for him, and I just couldn't understand what it is that I did to make him so angry. I also noticed that there were no new messages that day, so I chalked it up to maybe he had realized his mistake and was feeling apologetic. I hoped he would eventually call me and we could sort it out. However, 2 days later, Kylie called me to let me know that she had some news and I might not like it. When she came over, she looked furious and showed me pictures on her phone taken outside of Cole's place. In the pictures, a young blonde woman is entering our home. I could not understand what it meant, which was when Kylie told me that Cole had been cheating on me. It felt like all my breath was knocked out of my lungs. I just shook my head as Kylie continued to tell me that she had watched this girl for the past 2 days going in and coming out of Cole's place and suspected that her brother was having an affair. My whole body was shaking and I felt like puking. Kylie tried to hug me, but I shook her off and ran into my washroom. The world around me was spinning and I could feel a dull throb in my head. I kept thinking that this just could not be true and that maybe there was a simpler explanation for this. I came out of the washroom and Kylie had a worried expression on her face. My mother, who had been caught up by Kylie about what my husband had done, looked at me with a furious expression. I tried to laugh it off and tell them that it was probably a housekeeper or one of Cole's co-workers, but the more I tried to explain to them why a young woman looking like that was going to meet my husband while he and I were in the middle of a fight, the more I could see Kylie and my mom looking at me with a pitiful expression that almost made me nauseous. My mom gently made me sit down, but I just kept looking at the floor. Kylie told me how she also wanted to believe that her brother was not cheating, but the evidence suggested otherwise. She then asked me if Cole had contacted me in the past 2 days and I shook my head. She kept quiet and what followed next was loads and loads of crying on my part. I can't even begin to write the incredible sadness you feel when you know your marriage has ended. I will say that Kylie and mom sat right there with me on the floor, comforting me in their own way. When I started to feel a bit better, my mom told me that she was sorry for thinking my cowardly husband could ever change and that she was going to help me find a divorce lawyer. Kylie agreed and told me that she is going to investigate a bit more about this mystery woman, which could potentially help me in my divorce with my husband. I didn't do much except nod. I just wanted to sleep, so they left me to crawl into my bed and pretend like everything was just a big, old nightmare. However, like every other person who had been cheated on, I woke up to a dull pain in my chest and realization slowly struck that the love of my life had cheated on me. Kylie had sent me those pictures of the woman entering our home, so I zoomed in as much as possible to notice how young the woman looked. I could not believe that my pathetic husband, instead of talking to me like a sane person, had decided to hook up with a random person, which made me even more angry. If my husband thought that he could do whatever he wanted and I would just come crawling back to him, then he was in for a big surprise. I was going to file for divorce and take everything that he ever owned. I did talk to my mom and we started researching about good divorce lawyers in the area so we could set up appointments with them. Kylie would call me whenever she could to check up on me. When I finalized a divorce lawyer, the first thing my lawyer informed me was that we needed to hire a PL so we could gather as much evidence as possible, which would ensure I got the most out of my divorce. Hiring a PI was pricey, but I didn't mind as long as Cole would learn his lesson to never mess with me. Throughout this time, Cole only messaged me twice, and both times he wrote asking if I was ready to apologize to him. The messages only made me angrier, and there were so many things I wanted to say, but I also knew that saying those things would alert him about the divorce, and I wanted to see his expression when I would hand him the divorce papers. Cole never once bothered showing up to my mom's place because in his head he still believed that the way he reacted about my phones was completely justifiable. Meanwhile, my lawyer informed me that the PI was gathering a lot of good evidence, and Cole's relationship with this young woman seemed serious as they met up literally every day. This made us believe that she was not some random hookup and perhaps they had been having an affair for a long time. Kylie also found out after hours of internet sleuthing that this young woman was named Georgina, who was just 23 years old. The most shocking thing was that this woman had a record and was wanted in another state because she had been involved in car theft as a youngster while working for a gang. This meant that my husband had been having an affair with a potential criminal, which was incredibly disturbing to learn. Georgina worked as a stripper currently, so no doubt she must have lied about her past to everyone. Kylie and I talked and we both agreed that this was a serious matter that Cole needed to know the truth about. We decided to have a secret meeting with my in-laws without Cole finding out, where I told them about everything that had been going on. At first, Cole's parents, who didn't even know that we were having marital problems, were surprised to hear this. They told me how Cole had been lying to them for weeks, telling them everything was fine at home. Kylie also showed them pictures of Georgina, and we had further evidence of what the PI had gathered. Cole's parents were furious that their own son could do something so despicable. Cole's mom hugged me and assured me that they had my back and they were absolutely disgusted that their son had decided to have an affair with a criminal/stripper. We all came up with a plan to catch him red-handed where his parents could have an intervention and I could hand him the divorce papers. My birthday was in a few days, so his parents took Rain and called Cole right there to insist that he should throw a big celebration for me, his wife, this year so we could all celebrate it together. Cole tried to sly his way out by nonchalantly saying how I probably would not like a big celebration, hoping that his parents would not find out about what was actually happening in our marriage, but his dad doubled down saying he had already talked to me and I had told him how I would absolutely love it. Cole seemed taken aback when his dad mentioned this, but eventually agreed to his parents' demand to host a birthday party for me. Throughout all this, he didn't once mention that I wasn't even living with him at this point or that he was involved with another woman. Later, Cole called me, or at least he gave me several missed calls because I refused to pick up. He then sent me a message saying that he would love to throw a birthday party for me and that he was hoping that I could let bygones be bygones by attending for the sake of his parents. I replied back pretending as if this wasn't the plan all along and told him how it was really thoughtful of him to do this and that I would happily attend. On the day of my birthday, I had my divorce papers along with pictures from my PI was ready just in case Cole refused to accept his affair. When my mother and I showed up at Cole's place, he didn't bother to hug me and just gave me and my mom a dry smile. We walked in to see that the man had done absolutely nothing to decorate the house for the evening to celebrate my birthday. It looked like a frat place with gray balloons hung randomly around the living room and the living room looked extremely dirty. I walked into the kitchen to see a pile of dishes that had been kept unwashed. Cole had brought takeaway pizza for the evening, which almost made me chuckle. When his parents showed up, Cole helped them settle down. Every one of us acted like we were none the wiser, waiting for the right opportunity to confront Cole. When Kylie arrived, she came bearing gifts for me and then we all sat down to have dinner, making small talks here and there. We cut my birthday cake and everyone congratulated me for turning 36. This is when the doorbell rang and Cole ran to open it. To everyone's shock, he then walked in holding Georgina's hand, who was wearing this skimpy glittery dress and high heels. Cole ignored me completely and went up to his parents, introducing Georgina and saying how he had been wanting to announce something for a long time and thought this would be the perfect opportunity to do so. Cole then began to loudly say how no one knew but he had been unhappy in his marriage with me since I abused him emotionally and never took his feelings into consideration. How I would gaslight him and manipulate him and was never a good wife to him. He continued to say how he had found out recently that I had cheated on him when he caught me with another phone, and after confronting me about it, I had walked out on him. He paused for dramatic effect and continued to say that if it wasn't for Georgina then he could not have survived the last few months of our failing marriage. He said how 6 months ago he had met her and one thing led to another, which made him realize just how badly I had been treating him. He continued to announce that since I had left, he and Georgina had been spending more and more time together and recently found out that she was even 2 months pregnant. My eyes widened in shock as this was a new piece of information that I was not ready to learn. I turned to look at Kylie and her mouth was hanging open in shock as well. Cole then continued to say how I had failed as a woman by not being a good wife to him during our marriage. However, he was lucky enough to find Georgina and hoped that his parents could accept her. My mother, who had been clearly trying to hold her anger in until this moment, finally let her intrusive thoughts win. She got up from her chair and threw a whole glass of Sprite on Cole's face, screaming what a piece of garbage he was. Cole looked shocked while Georgina looked terrified. Kylie then screamed at Cole that his game was up and that we all knew that he had been having an affair with this woman. She continued to tell him everything that she had found out about Georgina, including the fact that she was wanted in another state for stealing cars. I cannot tell you how satisfying it felt to watch my husband lose all color on his face and begin to panic. I knew then that this was my perfect chance to serve him with divorce papers. I took out the papers from my coat and walked across the table handing him the papers. I told him triumphantly that I was done, and now that he had publicly admitted to having an affair I was coming for everything he owned. My mother and I excused ourselves as we watched his parents and Kylie continued to shout at him. I was done with him and his drama and I had no intention to stay there any longer. Throughout the car ride, my mom kept telling me how proud she was that she raised a strong woman like me. I have no idea what Kylie and her parents said to Cole, but it must have been bad because he kept calling me and texting me begging me to talk. I woke up this morning to almost 80 messages where Cole has begged me to come back to him and promised that he is going to change. He says he is ready to go for couple counseling and that if I really loved him, I would not give up so easily. Now normally, I would not think twice, but if you would have asked me last year if I was ever going to divorce Cole, my answer would have been no. However, things have changed and I know I am on the right path now. While my brain knows the right thing to do, my heart still feels sad for him, especially seeing his gut-wrenching messages like he can't live without me and how he had always wanted to grow old with me. I can't trust my heart, so Reddit, Ida, for exposing my husband's double life to his family and finally divorcing him? Update 1. Wow, when I posted this I did not expect so many people to be this harsh. I have received hundreds of DMs bashing me for even thinking that I could ever forgive this horrible man. I get it, people. I am not going to go back to Cole. I want y'all to stop being so mean to me now. When I posted this, I admit that I was feeling a bit guilty, so I got carried away. However, now all that guilt is gone and I won't let my husband's stupid words sway me ever. Also, for those saying that I should just block him, I can't, as my lawyer has advised me to keep all communication channels open until the divorce gets finalized. A lot of you have also pointed out to me how Cole is still lying and that he must have had an affair with this girl Georgina or another woman long back, which is why he had become so controlling and possessive in our relationship, and I quite agree with that. However, I have no interest in finding out the truth because regardless of whether or not it is true, I just want this chapter of my life to be done. Update 2. It's been a few months since my last update. For those asking, I did get an STD test and I am happy to report that I am clean, so at least I have avoided that crisis. Now coming on to my divorce, it is still dragging on. Cole's lawyer keeps finding excuses to put it off as long as possible, which is extremely frustrating, but me and my lawyer are determined to not give up. Cole's lawyer doesn't want me to claim anything from Cole, but I paid for all the renovations around the house the 3 years I was married to him. I colored and set up his basement so he could have his man cave. I paid for half of his car's loan and I was the one bringing in groceries every week, so I deserve my share and will make sure that I get it. Kylie and Cole's parents have continued to remain in touch with me. I met up with Kylie last month and she gave me the happy news that she is engaged. She is going to be married in the coming months and has already invited me to attend. I don't know if I should go because I don't want to meet Cole, but she has insisted that she wants me there to support her on her big day. Kylie also informed me that Cole and Georgina have broken up. Apparently, after that big fiasco on my birthday, Georgina informed him that she had been in fact sleeping with multiple men, so there was no guarantee that she was even pregnant with his child. She took off after that with another man, God knows where, perhaps scared that we might call the police on her. Cole has been devastated since then and had been blaming me, but his parents gave him another earful and reminded him that it was all his fault. Honestly, I don't care about his feelings or his breakup, and hopefully, in my next update I can share happier news. I am planning on talking to Cole's parents and hopefully, they can help me find a way to get Cole to divorce me as soon as possible so I can move on from all this. Update 3. Okay, guys, I did it. I am divorced. I can't believe that I am finally free. Cole and his lawyer did everything that they could to keep extending our case, but the judge just had enough. In the end, Cole agreed to give me everything that I had asked for. It turns out that Cole's parents had another talk with him and threatened to cut him off their inheritance if he didn't finally divorce me and end these months and months of petty fight. I am so happy, and tonight I have planned to finally go out with my friends and have the time of my life. I have also invited Kylie, so we are all set to have some good times. I would like to thank everyone for keeping up with me and sending me supportive DMs throughout this journey.